It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us to talk about a Catholic mother-daughter journal. Yeah, you heard that right. It's for both mothers and daughters to journal together. It's really exciting. Is Lori and Ava Ubowski. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So, Lori, on a scale from 1 equals mom to 10 equals friend, how would you describe your relationship with Ava?
Oh, that's a really good question. That has so many layers, but I think we're on a 6 or a 7.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Around there.
Closer to the friendship?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a good relationship, and fortunately, we're just blessed. And I think, I definitely can become the mom when I need to, as she laughs at me. But but I also want her to know that I'm someone she can come to no matter what she's going through, and that I will always love her and will work through whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where did the idea for this journal come from?
So we moved recently, just in the last few years, and it was a tough move. Ava was about 9 or 10 then, and we were trying to kind of navigate life and what she wanted to do, and some of the things she did where we used to live, we couldn't really do in our new town, and some of her activities. And we started talking, and I kind of looked at her. We had these conversations where I was like, Ava, what do you want to do? And she kind of looked at me like, stop looking at me, or or just don't pressure me right now to answer this. And I realized quickly that she processed differently when it came to these decisions. And so she's always loved English and writing. And I thought, well, maybe a journal would be a good way to facilitate these conversations. It would help her to respond better and be more comfortable with, trying to figure things out. And we found a secular journal that kind of fostered that mother-daughter communication, but it just really was lacking faith.
Yeah.
Like everything we wanted to talk about, we want God intertwined with that. And so it wasn't really fostering that. So that's kind of where the desire came, to have something that would help with that. And a couple of our good friends, Emily and Michelle, the co-authors of Divine Mercy for Moms, really were instrumental in helping us bring this idea to life, and just it kind of started there. So really it's just a beautiful progression.
Yeah. So Ava, what did you like about the first time you were journaling with your mom?
Well, I liked it because it took the pressure off of basically having to answer right then and there, sort of. But it's kind of nice that you can write it in the book, and it seems less embarrassing instead of talking straight to her face, basically. And I also like that whatever goes in the book stays in the book. So that's a good policy that we give with the book. So I just like the idea of journaling back and forth, honestly.
Yeah. How old are you, Ava?
I am 12.
Oh, awesome. And so what was the process then of taking the things that you liked from that secular book and turning it into a Catholic journal that you were writing the questions and the reflections and things like that?
It definitely took on a life of its own. I would say the only similarities would be just that mother and daughter talking back and forth with each other. But the cool thing is, as this developed with our editor and we started to kind of format each section, we really just got into this place where we were turning to the examples of the saints. So in each section, we highlight a saint or a Bible figure, and then we talk about the virtues or the qualities that saint is known for, and then talk about how we can embrace those same qualities. And we use all kinds of scripture and different quotes from different saints. And then we just have sections where we dive into that a little bit deeper, but then we have a little bit of fun too, and we'll talk about just silly things back and forth, and have sections for creativity, or sections that kind of call us to action. So yeah, it just kind of came to life, and we had a lot of fun thinking up the different ideas.
Yeah.
So what age group would this be good for?
So it's kind of created to work with tweens, but we would say anywhere from 9, 10 to or even early high school. But we've already had people who have received the book and have said, my 4-year-old wants to do it. So, I mean, why limit?
Yeah, I mean, you're really just having some of these conversations in a slightly more structured format. You're saying that it's not something that would necessarily go over a 4-year-old's head or be maybe inappropriate to be discussing with a 4-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it definitely would be appropriate. They just might not have, a 4-year-old might not have the maturity level to answer everything, but
Sure.
they certainly could enjoy this time. We really encourage people to just be creative with it. And some have even asked, would it apply to a different situation, because not all families come in the same shape and size. Would a grandmother be able to do it with a granddaughter? Absolutely. Or a godmother with a goddaughter. It's really, it can be adaptable.
Yeah. So we're talking about the Side-by-Side Journal. It's a Catholic mother-daughter journal available from Ave Maria Press. Lori and Ava Ubowski are here talking about it. And when you talk about filling this out, do you read the reflections and the questions together and answer some of the questions together? Or do you kind of each go into your corner and take turns reading and writing your reflections? Because there's like a mom side and a daughter side to a lot of these different questions.
Yes, that's correct. So there's a reflection in each section by each of us. So Ava writes a section for the daughters to read, and then I write a section for the mothers to read. So it's kind of some individual time, but then there are activities to do together. And then, Ava, do you want to describe how we've kind of done the mom writing to daughter and daughter writing to mom?
Yeah, so it's like there's questions for each of them, and say the daughter goes first, basically, so she can write down her answers, and then she goes and hides it under the mom's pillow, say. So then the mom can write back to her and give it to the daughter when she's done with it, or they can just discuss it together, something like that. But it's really fun because you can, like, hide it in different places.
Yeah, kind of just designate a safe place to leave it for each other. And
Gotcha.
that's the cool thing, too, is you don't have to go from beginning to end. You can pick a spot in the journal and just pick it up wherever you want to. So that's kind of neat, too.
So I love this idea. It's so cute. And I think a lot of people are going to want to do this as, like you said, either mother, daughter, or grandmother, granddaughter, or godmother, godchild. What are some of the topics that you talk about in the journal?
Our different sections focus on kindness, forgiveness, unconditional love, beauty, and what that means. Not necessarily outside beauty, but inward beauty. Mm-hmm. Those are some of the things we touch on. One of my favorite sections is realistic expectations, just kind of being realistic about life and how messy it is and how imperfect it is. And then also things about what do we aspire to be? What does God want from us? Things like that.
And you talk about female saints and different heroines from the Bible. So, Ava, do you have a favorite of these female saints or somebody from the Bible?
Well, I actually did a project at school last year on St. Catherine of Siena, and that was really cool, just learning about her. She's like a great role model, I think. She devoted herself completely to God, like even starting at age 4 or 5, I think. But yeah, that was really cool. And then one of my favorite Bible characters is, well, story, I guess, the story of Ruth and Naomi. I really like that story because Ruth stays by Naomi's side, so it's like side by side. So,
yeah, and both of those are included in the journal.
Yeah.
And so, I assume you worked on this and wrote this together, and some of it independently, maybe. But then, did you go through it and actually fill out the journal as if you hadn't written it, and we're kind of like reading and reflecting on these for the first time? What was that process like?
It's funny because, well, due to our recent life circumstances, other people received the book before we did. And so we were kind of waiting to really go through it until we had it in our hands. But as we formed each question and thought about it, we definitely said to each other out loud, like, how would we answer that? Like, is that a question that someone could answer fairly easily? Yeah. Or does that make sense? So as we kind of worked through it together, we verbally, paid attention to each of those questions in that way.
You mentioned some of the trials that your family has gone through. This really has been a tough time for you right around the release of this book. You want to share a little bit about what your family's been going through?
Sure. Yeah. Hurricane Michael which was just a few miles per hour away from a Category 5 hurricane, the third strongest hurricane to hit the United States ever, went right over top of our town, Panama City, Florida, and our house was just a couple miles inside the eye wall. So our community is suffering, and we got hit pretty hard, and our house is unlivable and maybe is fixable. We're not entirely sure yet what that's all going to involve, but it's just now that we can kind of talk about it without tears, but the tears come and go still. It's just really, even when after you've seen it, I mean, pictures you can kind of see, but being there and seeing the destruction, it's really hard to wrap your mind around it, even seeing it and being in it. It literally is just looking around at a town that you used to drive down the road and you would recognize everything, but now you need a map to go somewhere you've gone every day because nothing looks the same, and there aren't street lights and there's no street signs, and every business except a handful is pretty much destroyed, and neighbors have left and fled, and who knows if anybody's coming back. So it's been really difficult, just doesn't really even sum it up. But we've been very blessed by many friends and family and even complete strangers who have reached out to us. So that's been kind of the little shreds of hope in all of this.
Yeah. So how has that had an impact on your faith, either positively or negatively, like this kind of trying time?
That's a good question. You know, I think in situations like this, people will turn to God even more so, or sometimes resent God or be angry. And I think for myself, and Ava can maybe answer this differently, but I think I've just landed in the numb category. Like, I'm too numb to know what to do really, or to know how to cry out or reach out. But those around me whose faith is strong and have reached out, that's really what's helped me to push through because of their faith.
Yeah. Ava, what's this been like for you?
Well, I think I'm also slightly numb like my mom, but it sort of has somehow been stronger in faith because we've just been very blessed and things seem to be working out pretty well, no matter how crazy the situation seems. But I just believe that God's going to get us through this. So.
Well, it's so amazing to hear you guys say that. And I can only imagine that a resource like this, where you might not know what's going on with your children, and to be able to have a format to have a discussion and where you can, you know, kind of think about the struggles. And this is being a very obvious one that your family's going through. A lot of times we don't know the struggles that our kids are going through at school, and we don't have these conversations because we don't realize that there's things going on. And so to have an opportunity to break open some of these conversations and to have a dialogue and to journal about it, I think this is going to be a great resource. So where should we send people to get a copy of it?
So there's several places you can get it, but if you go to our website, sidebysidejournal.com, there's a purchase page where you can get it at Amazon, Books A Million, of course, Ave Maria Press. Love to support them, our publishers, so you can get it there as well. And yeah, that'll point you to all those links. Yeah, so our website is the best place probably.
All right, again, it's the Side by Side, a Catholic mother-daughter journal, and you can find that at sidebysidejournal.com. Thank you so much, Lori and Ava, for joining us and sharing a little bit of your life and the journey of putting this together. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kyle. We appreciate it.
Thank you.